Hello and welcome to this special edition of the Daily Australian Radio Show, video version. And I'm here because there is a fantastic new development in terms of the Australian federal election. At long last, the first moves in the right direction to be able to consolidate third-party interests under a brand new alliance. It was only announced really last night, an Australia First Alliance, an informal name, joining three parties, the Libertarians, Gerard Rennick's People First Party and the Heart Party together to form a joint ticket in the upcoming Senate election. This is very, very exciting, and I'm pleased to announce that I have both Michael O'Neill and Gerard Rennick joining me right now to discuss what's actually going on. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Jason. Happy to be here.
Michael, terrific to see you, and Gerard as well. We're trying to get Craig on the show. There's some sort of complication there, so we'll see what we can do to get him in as soon as we can. But Senator Gerard Rennick is the senator for Queensland for the People First Party. Michael O'Neill is the leader of the Heart Party and Senate candidate number 2 now for New South Wales behind Craig Kelly. Now, I know each of you has discussed the idea of merging third parties and also the idea of a joint ticket. Last week, John Ruddick gained traction and invited all third parties to the table at the weekend. So what I'd like to do first to start is, Michael, can you tell us how it was that you decided to come along to this meeting on Sunday?
Well, we've been listening to the people. If we get one message that consistently comes through to us as a party is people want to see minor parties that have similar views, often very, very close in all their objectives, join together so that they diffuse a lot of the confusion. And I've been very keen to do this. And we were just looking for the correct vehicle to do it. And John Ruddick's plan, I believe, was a wonderful plan. Our executive unanimously voted to get on board. So we are very happy to be here. And I believe it's a response to the people's calls to do it. And if we're going to say that we represent the will of the people, then we need to represent the will of the people.
Yeah, it's obviously incredibly important, isn't it, to be able to be a party that serves the people instead of serving themselves. Now, Gerard, your background, obviously, you were a LNP senator for Queensland, and that circumstances led to you having to leave the party, but create Gerard Rennick's People First Party. Can you explain why you went down that pathway, but still led towards this alliance? I think there's a little bit of nuance that people should understand.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Yeah, it is nuanced. You have to be in a party to get your name above the line on the Senate ticket. There wasn't any other options, basically, in what I'd call a major minor party up here. And I really wanted the time to just push. I mean, I had gotten nowhere in the last 5 years when I was within the coalition about policy formulation. I just felt like every time I was going to Canberra, I was on the back foot about government introducing more controls over people's personal lives rather than trying to provide solutions. So I just wanted to go out on my own, actually, and have some fresh air and push policy instead of talking, either bickering with the other side or bickering, just the general melee of bickering in politics. I didn't really want to focus on personalities or parties either. I just wanted to focus on policies. So that's why I went out on my own. But having said that, I recognise that there is a need for the minor parties, and I recognise all these brands, and I think they've done very well, and they deserve our respect for the brands that they have. And what I like about the alliance is it enables people to keep the brand and to appeal to people with particular interests. But we can work as an alliance because the coalition's an alliance. People forget that it's quite a strange alliance in many respects because it's the inner city wealthy elites and the actual regional communities, which sometimes if you step back and take a look at it, it's actually quite a bit of a weird juxtaposition. But no one ever questions that. And when you look at most of the minor parties, we shared our common interests are much more than our differences. And it is in our interest to work together and I think share resources across the states. And that has always been my view. I mean, I initially, back in January, approached the Libertarians and Family First about doing a ticket in New South Wales and South Australia, a joint ticket. For various reasons that didn't go ahead. But that's still what I think we should be trying to do as much as possible where, I think everyone can come out in front. And I want to emphasise this. We need to be able to get we want to compete with the majors, we have to get electoral funding like the majors do. I mean, they walk away after every election with 50 or 60 million dollars. That means they can spend up to 50 or 60 million dollars plus the, on advertising, plus the considerable mainstream media attention they get. And that gives them a significant advantage. And we now know that a third of Australians, sorry, I'm outside today, running around. So sorry for the camera wobble. A third of Australians, and that could even get closer to 40% by the end of this election, are sick of the majors. And we need to be able to demonstrate, the minor parties have to demonstrate that they are capable of presenting a professional and polished, erudite package of solutions, and show that they're capable of having the organisation capability to actually run an organisation that's capable of implementing these policies and delivering solutions to the Australian people. Now, my view is for too long, too many crossbench senators have been dog whistling and playing personality politics, playing the man rather than dealing with solutions. And that's the reason why we went out on our own. I know, and I mean, that's, there's certain parties that do that more than others, but we have to stop focusing on ourselves and start focusing on providing solutions to the people.
Fantastic. Now, Michael, speaking of solutions and policy, could you name, for those that aren't aware of the Heart Party, which used to be in another world, let's call it the IMOP, Informed Medical Options Party, what would be your three key policies going into the 2025 election?
The three things that are really at the heart of our politics are freedom of speech, freedom of bodily autonomy, and parental rights. We feel that these are severely under attack, and these really affect the tenets of freedom that this country was founded on, and also basically for the person just living their life, wanting to look after their body or take control of their families, and they have lost the right to do this if it somehow disagrees with a narrative that the government has embraced. We feel this is a travesty of justice, and I really want to fight for parents, particularly parents' rights to do, to take back control of their family, their children, their life, and like freedom of speech. If you have your speech prescribed, then what are you? You've lost everything that makes you a human being, just to be able to come into some sort of robotic narrative that you don't agree with. That's just pure straight out of Stalin's handbook. And we do not want to see our country going that way.
Yeah, well said, Michael. Gerard, your three key policies going into the election?
Lower income taxes, voluntary superannuation, and greater flexible childcare support to the parents rather than childcare centre. And they're basically, and can I just say, Michael's three policies are very good as well. I mean, we encompass all of those policies. We want to push some economic policies. I think in the minor parties, we need to focus on economic solutions as well. I'm a big believer that debt it probably controls you more, or money controls you more than just about any other, even more than the government in some respects. And a good example of that was in a recent COVID, issue, whereby the government basically told people if you didn't get a jab, you were going to lose your job. Now, if you had your house paid off and had some money in the bank, you probably could have sat it out. But because many people had a mortgage, had bills to pay, had children's school fees to pay, or whatever, they needed to get that jab, and many of them, unfortunately, have been injured as a result of that, and now are incapable of working. Period. So we want to empower people economically as well, because we believe that will also give them much greater choice. Notwithstanding, there's a whole raft of other policies. It's a bit, there's a lot of things we need to do, and I fully embrace all of Michael's policies as well, because they're good ones.
I think it's important, therefore, to realise that you don't have to own a policy outright to therefore be exclusive. In fact, the opposite holds. There is this area of common ground. John Ruddick said, technically we agree on 80% of policies, and some we don't. Now, I just want to take a pause for a moment, because I know people who will be watching will say, hang on a second, Jason, ask those tough questions, the ones that are really bothering people. And most of this will go down the pathway of globalism versus nationalism, where we see Donald Trump in the US clearly a nationalist, and he rejected anti-left-wing globalist Anthony Albanese in terms that were issued yesterday by Sharry Markson on Sky News, saying for the reason why Albanese can't get a second follow-up call with Donald Trump. But I want to talk about idealism briefly. Political idealism. This is the idea that many of us have changed our political allegiances and alliances over the last 5 years, maybe even the last 10 years, when we realised that our traditional mainstream parties no longer serve in our interests. So there are many people who become idealists, and in the process, there are accusations made of people being controlled opposition and all these different excuses, etc. Now, Gerard, I know that you have been in office for 5 years, and probably the best person qualified to talk about this is, what is the best single approach to be able to get the most support in politics that may not necessarily be that you can be an idealist on the fringes? Can you perhaps explain that, the idea of perhaps being it's coming from the centre, if that's the approach that you would take?
Well, Jason, you just got to use common sense and call it as you see it. And that's, it's interesting you talk about idealism. I was taught, when I did my commerce degree, in the concept of free markets, and that markets are efficient. And I've sort of discovered over the last 30 years that they're not efficient. Insider trading exists, there's agency costs, et cetera, et cetera. So, I was told money wasn't printed out of thin air. You can't print money out.
So, sorry, Gerard, we're just having a little bit of interference there off the internet. What I'll do is I'll just get you to pause for just a moment. Look, I don't know, it doesn't look like it's the weather up there in Queensland. The weather's beautiful, but I'll just give you a chance to just correct that. I'll go to Michael. Michael, what do you see, given your experience in 2022, and it was a very, very tough election. People were really, really suffering lots of abuses of freedom, etc. How did you mature your party or your political experience from 22 to 25?
Okay, yeah, well, it was a bit of a shock, 22, because I actually expected a better result than we got. I thought with all the injustices and the government overreach that we saw during COVID, that people would swarm. We saw the march to Canberra. We saw those, like in excess of 500,000 people on the lawns of Canberra who'd left their homes and invested money to drive down. I thought, people are going to vote. But unfortunately, it didn't really happen. And I do believe that now, in our quest for unity, I think people really want to see something not so fragmented. They want to see us working together. They want to see some sort of viable opportunity. They are looking wistfully towards us and all the political parties for hope. And if they just see us as a lot of fragmented small parties, then it doesn't engender a lot of confidence in them, unfortunately, and it probably affects their voting patterns. Me personally, I'm a business person. I've run businesses. I have multiple businesses, and we run them successfully. And I feel that, Gerard mentioned common sense. Common sense is a greatly neglected and in fact, regulated against in this day and age. So we want to bring this common sense back into Parliament. We want to bring the voice of the people and logic, common sense logic, looking at history, looking at where we're sitting, and every situation is some way different. There's nothing carbon copied from a past situation, although we do learn from history. So, yeah, I'm hoping it will engender more confidence in this election amongst the people when they see us unite, and hopefully our example might encourage others to unite and just offer hope to the people on the street, the people living with cost of living pressures, mortgage pressures, and all the other pressures that exist in life, and definitely those that were severely hurt during COVID, that lost jobs, lost their homes. I do know people in my local area. I know one lady who was a school principal and actually lost her home because she just made a simple medical choice that I trust my body to look after me, and I won't take take what the big government doctor is telling me to do. So, yeah, hopefully it'll be better.
Extraordinary, isn't it, that we can still reflect upon that in such a way that changed people's lives and has largely been shown to to be, as many people suspected, those who stood up for themselves. Gerard, looking at global issues, what we've seen out of the United States in the 6 odd weeks of the Trump return to the Oval Office, we've seen him make big inroads in pulling out of global organisations, pressure on the United Nations, certainly the WHO, and we've talked about the WEF on previous occasions. Is there any scope in the Australia First Alliance to address any of these issues to concerned members, or should the Alliance and those in the third party movement concentrate on more mainstream issues, or do you consider these to be mainstream issues going into the federal election?
Well, yes, they are mainstream issues, but we can only deal with it within our scope, right? So as I say to people, like, we can shout out the clouds about, WEF all day, every day. They don't have, we don't have any authority over the World Economic Forum, right? So, yep, we can withdraw out of the World Economic Forum tomorrow. I'm not even sure we're in it. It's more of a think tank than anything else. But that's still not going to solve our problems here. And if you just want to, the best way to reduce foreign influence in Australia is stop allowing bureaucrats to travel overseas to go to these forums, right? The other angle I've been attacking lately is the intelligence agencies, because I do think they're very unaccountable and very unscrutinised. And I think they do collude with other intelligence agencies a great deal to be pushing agendas. And I think I'm a big believer that the left wing, or a lot of the Marxists, call it whatever, put a label, whatever label you want. The globalist thought pattern has infiltrated our intelligence agencies, and they're the ones we need to hold to account. But at the same time, having said all that, well, I think it's a genuine issue. Most Australians aren't aware of it, and you're not going to really win an issue win an election within the mainstream on that. Going back to what Michael said earlier, I think we need to be seen to be capable of delivering on outcomes. And if we can't even get ourselves elected or somehow unify into some, effective alliance, then people who are disenfranchised with the two majors still won't vote for us, because they don't see us as a viable alternative. And that's the thing. Yeah, that's why I wanted to go out on my own initially. And that's what I really want to push going forward, regardless of whether or not I get in again. Is the fact that we need candidates who look like viable alternatives, who can make up a coalition of viable alternatives to the major parties.
Yeah, well said. It's a very important thing. Now, I want to then double down on that and ask each of you. Michael, I'll start with you first. I know in 2022, UAP, One Nation, and your own party and Libertarians were running unbelievable amounts of lower house candidates. Is the strategy, therefore, of less is more the way you're going to approach 2020 to 25 in terms of lower house candidates? What are you thinking at the moment you'll run in the lower house in terms of numbers?
We're going to try and we are still going to try and run as many as we can. We are working together with with Gerard's team and the Libertarians to make sure that we don't cross up. We've already fallen on our sword on a few seats where we had a candidate, they had a candidate, and we thought, okay, let's just have the one run there in these lower house seats, because we do know that they feed votes up into the upper house. And it's very important that we do get our senators elected. We need to get Gerard elected in Queensland. We need Craig Kelly in New South Wales, and the other endorsed candidates on this ticket. They have to get in there so that we have a good solid voting bloc to represent the people of Australia and stand up against this duopoly of the two major parties that often join together on issues that are out of the will of many Australian people. And even if it's the majority of Australian people, the minority of Australia, every Australian has to have some sort of representation in the parliament, and that's what we want to do. We're hoping that we are trying to get as many lower house candidates as we can, but we really see that our big push will be towards the Senate. And
That makes sense. So, Gerard, given that there won't be a genuine crossing over between Libertarian People First and Heart Party candidates, what are you thinking in your own party in terms of lower house candidates?
Oh, we're just going to run mainly in Queensland. We've got a handful in New South Wales and Victoria, but mainly we're looking at the Senate, getting myself back in and maybe one or two other senators in other states if we can jag some senators there, and looking at getting an effective crossbench where, every election cycle we get a minor party senator up from every state so that we end up with 12 senators and a coalition of crossbench senators in the chamber that can hold the two major parties to account.
If one way or another, do you see a role for a Doge type of experience in terms of the Australian federal government expenditure? And would you see a role for yourself involved in that at all somewhere down the track?
No, Jason, look, this Doge stuff, it's like this stuff should go on every day. Michael said he's run a business. When you're running a real business, you control your costs, you're looking for any cost blowout. You go and get quotes from more than one source, and you're trying to maintain your costs and not letting your costs get out of control. This shouldn't be seen as some one-off stellar moment that's going to be, then forgotten about. It needs to be an ongoing process. And I have to admit, a lot of people are looking at Doge as though, it's some sudden new invention, and it's not. I mean, we actually have an Auditor General, and the Auditor General releases reports all the time about government waste. It's just that the media never talk about them. The only reason it's getting talked about now is that Elon Musk is in charge of it, which is a good thing, by the way. I'm not knocking what they're doing. It needs to happen. Just be clear about that. But we don't have an Elon Musk here in Australia, and it's a bit like sort of having, you can have the grandest of Parliament houses or whatever, but it's the outcomes you generate that matter, and it needs to be. It's making sure that we keep control of our costs, and it's a reflection.
Having some more internet issues there with Gerard. Sorry, Gerard, that phone's just giving you a little bit of grief. What we'll do, Michael, just quickly, while we just get Gerard sorted again, we're getting to the end of our time together. Looking forward, post-election, Michael, is there or are there plans for the Alliance to get together and then surge towards 28 by maturing this arrangement even further?
Yeah, absolutely. There are plans. This alliance is not a flash in the pan. It's a start of something that will grow. This is my hope. I do believe Gerard feels the same. The Freedom Summit we were at on the week, the summit we were at on the weekend. We are planned to be meeting again in the near future, and we'd like to perpetuate this. And we will see how the voters react during this election. Do they want this? And I do believe they want it. I've been overwhelmed on my inbox just looking this morning with nothing but positive messages coming in from everywhere, from people, business people, common people saying, well done, guys, we're so happy about this. So I realised, good, we've hit the mark here. But we don't want to sit on our laurels and think, oh yes, well we've done that, like some good. It has to go further, and we have to continue on with it. And
Gerard, this the same. Obviously, you're saying the same sentiment there, but pardon me. Looking forward again to the future post-election. The concept of being able to consolidate and then also move into a more formalized approach. Will people first, whichever guise it moves into in the future, go towards a branch model and become a mature, a proper political party, so to speak?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the plan. I can tell you, I can't. You can't. I mean, this is one of our points of difference with One Nation, is that we recognise the need to be a proper federal party and a grassroots organisation, because you can't get senators up in states if you don't have a proper branch structure there, right? State division, and we've seen that with One Nation, who Pauline got into politics in 1996, same time Bob Brown did. But it's always been run. One Nation's always been run very centrally, and as a result, they've got two senators up in 30 odd years, and both going into their 70s with no clear transition plan. We need to get a good federal party with state divisions, with branches. You can't fatten a pig on market day, as they say. And then we need to be getting our Senate candidates picked early, and we need to get as many people behind them. So we get to fill, man as many booths as possible. We can do as much door knocking as possible, letterbox dropping, all of that stuff. Because as I was, and the other thing is we have to get to that 4% to get the funding. And then start building a capital base of which we can then gradually increase over time as well. And that requires a volunteer organisation. What happens at the moment with some of these other minor parties is they get their 4% and they pay the money out to themselves throughout the 3-year cycle. And then they go again, but they're not really running national campaigns. And we don't want to rely on Clive Palmer every time. Not that he's really come through. But we want to be able to, if we can control our own capital, we can put the ads in the mainstream paper, get those ideas, get those policy solutions out there, so that people go, oh great, if we vote for these guys, they can give us flexible childcare, voluntary super, or lower our taxes. Because this is the problem. Half the time, people don't even know we exist. And that's the hard part, is getting our voice out there. And that's why we really need a proper federal division, grassroots division. We need to be getting to that 4%. We need to be building up funds, fundraising, and then start advertising excellent solutions that we know will appeal to the Australian people, that, embody the ethos of the Australian spirit, and will be there, because people are genuinely sick of the major parties and the fact they just won't put Australia first. And that's why we called that alliance Australia First, by the way, is that we wanted a positive name that was going to really represent what we all stood for, which was, putting Australia and its people first.
Absolutely. Now, I know we're at the end of our allocated time, so just quickly, Gerard, how do people first of all enrol in the party, become a member, and donate?
Thanks, Jason. www.peoplefirstparty.au, and you can either become a member, donate, or volunteer up the upcoming federal election.
All right, that's simple. So peoplefirstparty.au. Michael, how do they do the same for Heart Party?
Yes, it's the same, www.heartparty.com.au. Very simple, heartparty.com.au.
Beautiful. Well, I just want to make these quick observations before we go. Unfortunately, Craig wasn't able to get through. Craig Kelly was the reason I joined the UAP and jumped to that side of politics. Gerard Rennick, you're the reason I left the UAP. Because I realised that there was something that was better. And Michael O'Neill, you are the reason that I bothered to do this at all. You are the kindest man I've ever met in Australian politics, one that I consider a true friend, and you are a very special human being that has lifted so many people and continue to do so. I cannot think of 3 better gentlemen to be involved in politics for. You inspire me, and you inspire many, many tens, if not hundreds of thousands. So hopefully one day we'll be able to say it was in the millions. I believe you are forming what I would call, in Hollywood terms, the untouchables. You are going to be something that is exactly what has been needed in this country for a very, very long time. And the fact that you do it in such a way that people have been demanding for shows maturity and shows understanding of very, very complex issues. And I couldn't be prouder to know all of you. And of course, I will roll up the sleeves and get involved and do what I can do in this, on the ground and on behind the screen and all the rest of it. And more power to you all. This is how we save Australia. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Bye.
Thank you, Gerard.